Hi everyone, Peter here with Dyslexia Connect Online Tutoring. I titled today's segment, Help My Child Did Poorly on State Testing, because state testing time can be really hard on parents. You may be going through the school year and feeling like everything is going pretty well. You may have had parent-teacher conferences and spoken to your child's teacher about their progress and current challenges and how they're doing. And then suddenly you receive state testing results and you might feel like you're blindsided. Suddenly you discover that they scored poorly in maybe reading and math and all these different areas, and it tends to be really difficult because it disturbs the overall picture of your child's educational situation that you may have been building throughout the entire year. And so I wanted to address that because this period is really hard on parents in general, and particularly hard on parents who have children with dyslexia. And I wanted to address some of the issues and some of the feelings that you might be having during state testing time and when looking at state test results. So first of all, it's important to keep in mind that the standardized tests and state tests are not typically an accurate way to assess a child who has dyslexia. And this is simply due to the nature of dyslexia, and often state tests are meant to assess a child's abilities and a child's knowledge, but sometimes, especially for kids with dyslexia, the results end up showing that this child just really has a hard time with exams and a hard time with tests. And this is something, of course, that we know about dyslexia. Typically, testing is very hard for kids who have dyslexia because they have a hard time with high-pressure situations. And, of course, dyslexia often causes problems with reading, spelling, reading comprehension, reading accuracy, and these are all things that show up in state test results. And so you might simply end up seeing that, well, this child obviously had a really, really hard time with this test, and you might not get an actual picture of their abilities and their knowledge. And so another reason why these tests are very difficult and tend to not accurately assess a child with dyslexia is the fact that accommodations may not be available on these tests. Normally, if your child has an IEP in school and they have certain accommodations in place, like getting additional time for tests and having notes provided to them about lessons and assignments they're doing, or maybe they're allowed to have exams read to them out loud to be able to comprehend them better. These accommodations are often not available on state tests, or they may not apply. So as a result, your child is suddenly being tested in a way that is much different than they're tested during the rest of the year, and this is going to show in the results of the test. Another thing you may discover is that students may simply have test exhaustion. Students are tested a lot these days, and in any way, tests tend to be very exhausting for students who have dyslexia, even in normal situations. So if they find themselves in a situation where they're being tested for several hours in a day or a couple of days straight, this is going to tend to be really tiring for them, and so they may not be focusing as well as they normally would on a test or exam, or they may simply not be trying as hard because they're just really tired out from the amount of the testing. Specifically addressing the reading section, the reading section does not tend to be an accurate measure of where a student with dyslexia is at, simply because it's not designed to be an accurate test for a student who has dyslexia. It's a standardized test that is used with all students across the board. And we know that dyslexia has very certain characteristics to it, and students with dyslexia have very particular needs. And this is due to the nature of dyslexia. If you have a child with dyslexia and you've listened to them read, you have probably noticed the fact that they may be going along and reading a sentence, and they will completely breeze through several very complicated words, 3-syllable words, 4-syllable words, and then they'll suddenly stumble over a 1-syllable word that has 3 letters in it, or something else that's very short, or they may forget and omit certain short words. And this is the nature of dyslexia, and this is one of the symptoms of dyslexia. But these kind of difficulties tend to cause results on standardized tests to be inaccurate with them. The results may be all over the place because they'll be reading this, complex sentence and get that hard word and that hard word, but suddenly they stumble over these 3 easy words that they see next. Also, students with dyslexia, to get a real assessment of where they're at and a real evaluation, they need to be tested at the actual reading level that they're at. So the standardized tests that are used to test students who have dyslexia, these aren't typically state tests, but maybe used during the year in certain school districts. These tests tend to have the student at the actual level they're at. So they may do a benchmark test in the beginning of the year and discover that this student is in 5th grade, but they are reading at a 1st grade level. And so what they'll do is they'll test them at the 1st grade level with 1st grade reading material at the beginning of the year. And then 4 or 5 months down the road, they're going to test them again at the 1st grade level to see how they've improved. And in that way, they're going to be able to see actual improvement at the reading level they are at. If you suddenly throw them into grade level material like they see on a standardized test, they're going to have lots of trouble because their reading simply isn't up to that level yet. It's going to eventually get there, but it's not currently there. So what the state test at grade level is going to show is that they're just simply having tons of trouble with everything, tons of trouble on the test. And it's not going to show all the progress that they've actually been making during the year. A test at grade level, like a state test, can be useful to simply show the basic information that, well, this student who has dyslexia, they're obviously not at grade level, they're having trouble with this. It can give you some basic information, but it's not going to show progress that has been made. And part of the reason why it's challenging to assess students who have dyslexia in general is that dyslexia comes in so many different forms and degrees, and students who have dyslexia tend to have a variety of holes in their knowledge. And this is one of the things that when you're working with a student who has dyslexia, you go about trying to address these issues. A student may be reading at a certain level and be reading fairly well, but then you test them on their phonemic awareness and you discover that, well, they don't know what the EE vowel combination says, or they don't know what this letter combination says. And so they have a certain level in some areas, but they're really struggling at a very fundamental level, a very low grade level in other areas of their reading and spelling. And so this makes assessment challenging. So a question I often get is, what do I do if my child is in tutoring, in dyslexia tutoring? For example, in one of the proven methods such as Orton-Gillingham, or one of the methods in the Orton-Gillingham family that really do work when they're implemented properly by a tutor who is properly trained in them. What do you do if you've had them in tutoring for maybe 4, 5, 6 months and you get back state results and the reading test shows that they have not made improvement in the scores? Once again, it's a problem with how they're being assessed, as I mentioned previously. If they're suddenly being thrown into grade level material, then it's likely that that test is not going to show improvement. If they're being benchmarked with an exam or a testing system that actually is appropriate for students with dyslexia, then that would show that they have made improvement, that they've learned all kinds of things since they've been in tutoring. But being thrown into grade level material at that point is not going to tend to show any progress that they're making in tutoring. And that can be frustrating for parents because they may think that I have them in tutoring, I feel like I'm giving them what they need, but suddenly this test is showing that they haven't made progress. In reality, they have made progress if they're with a good tutor who's trained in one of those methods, but it's not going to be shown on that test. So, what can you do? What can you do when you get these test results that seem to be frustrating and very discouraging? One thing I would recommend is go and talk to your students' teachers. By talking to their teachers, you're going to get a very good holistic picture of what's going on, how they're doing, things that they maybe are struggling in, improvements that they've made during the year, and you're going to get just a better overall picture of how your child is doing in school that's going to make you feel a lot better. It's not going to boil everything down to a number or percentages or Lexile scores. It's going to give you a good overall picture of how they are doing. And if your child is in dyslexia tutoring, as I mentioned, dyslexia tutoring with one of the proven methods that work, like Orton-Gillingham or Wilson or Slingerland or MTA, go ahead and talk to the tutor about the child's progress, because they're going to be able to give you a wealth of information, exactly what they've been covering for the past number of months, where the student was at when they started with them compared to where they are now, the things the student has improved in, where they are going to be going with tutoring next, the different things they're going to be working on, improvements that will be made. And you're going to feel just so much better when you have a conversation with them and you start to realize, oh wow, they've been making all this progress in tutoring, and this just didn't show up on the test. But they're heading in the right direction, and they're making progress, and they're going to be increasing their level of reading because they're getting what they need. And finally, it's important with tests at all times to remember that a child is not the sum of their test scores. It's important to keep test scores in perspective. They are certain information, and of course they're always going to be around, and you're going to see state testing results and standardized test results every year. But it's important to keep these in perspective. They don't show your child's abilities, their problem-solving ability, their kindness, their work ethic, their ability to see things in a big picture. These are all areas that are not tested on standardized tests and state testing, and these are things that you need to keep in mind, and you need to continue to remind your child about it. Remind them about their abilities and all the potential they have and all the great things that they can do in life. And that will help you keep things in perspective, and it will also encourage them and help them keep working hard at making progress. So I hope this video has been helpful to you, and that it will be helpful if you watch it during the stressful time of state testing. And if you'd like to receive more videos, you can sign up for our YouTube channel. Also, you can connect with us on Facebook and Twitter. And if you're interested in our online dyslexia tutoring program, you can go ahead and go to our website at www.dyslexiaconnect.com, and you'll find a lot more information there, and you can contact us off any of the contact forms or with our email address. So thanks for watching, and I hope you have a great day.